All right, and we're live. See, like I'm not used to doing live streams. Actually, I think this is our first live stream where it's not me just jabbering stuff. So, what the best part of it is, you never know what's going to happen. You can't back out of it. You can't edit. It's just amazing. Just the grace of God. We hope everything goes smooth, and I'm sure it will. Today, joining me on the Study of Stuff SOS podcast are my good friends from Synaxis Podcast and from Light of Tabor. We're going to go around and just say a quick hello. Tell everybody your name, of course, but what it is that you put out, what type of content you put out, and how you kind of fit into the church. Like, are you catechumen? Are you baptized? So on and so forth. We'll start with Synaxis, go to Mark, go to Manny, and then myself.
Yeah, we're Synaxis Podcast. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Josh.
And we have a weird cross section that we talk about of like orthodoxy, conspiracy theories, literature, pop culture, music, all that stuff. Just all the stuff we're interested in. I have been baptized since 2010. Josh, you are...
I am a catechumen right now.
Yeah, soon to be baptized.
Soon to be
probably.
baptized.
Coming up,
Awesome.
We'll see. But yeah, that's us.
That's awesome. How about you, Mark?
All right. My name is Mark Paisios Ratelle. I'm the host of Light of Tabor podcast. We primarily focus on testimonies from people coming out of the New Age to Orthodoxy, but I've also talked to people coming out of Protestantism because there's some crossovers there between Protestantism and New Age to Orthodoxy. But in the church, in terms of the church, I was baptized in 2022 on Christmas Eve with my family into the Antiochian Orthodox Church, and I'm just a layman. But just trying to put out some content and bring more people to Orthodoxy, and all glory to God.
And how about you, Manny? Manny's behind the board. He's finally saying something.
Yeah, I'm Vanymedes, aka Manny. I grew up Roman Catholic, and I'm currently looking into Orthodoxy. Right now, I refer to myself as an Orthodox LARPer. I don't know if that's okay to say or not, but I'll find out soon enough. Yeah, I am a game designer, programmer. I do some light streaming every now and then. That's about it.
And I'm Mano, as you guys already know. Cradle Orthodox, but I kind of consider myself in the stage of catechumen, even though I was born into the faith. I know very little about the faith I grew up in, so that's a big reason why I like talking to these fine gentlemen and others and other guests that I've had on. I'm learning a lot from a lot of people, and that kind of segues me into why we're having this conversation. So we're going to have like a pretty chill conversation. We're going to talk about online orthodoxy, the pros and the cons. There have been a lot of live streams about this from many different channels. A lot of people have given their point of view. A lot of people have given their opinions. Now, one thing we're definitely not going to be doing is we're not going to be giving our personal opinions on scripture, ecclesiastic matters, and no interpretations. Of course, we're not Protestants. That's not an insult to Protestants, but that's not what we do as Orthodox Christians. But what we can do is discuss our experience, talk about what we've benefited from online Orthodoxy, and how it's helped us. We do live in a world where a lot of people spend a lot of time online, and there's a lot worse that you could be doing with your time, I think, than maybe watching a couple of videos from a priest or a great podcast. I couldn't get a priest on for this conversation. We will someday soon have a priest here representing to be able to kind of speak on matters we can't speak about. But we definitely can talk about our experiences. So that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to have you guys on so we can have this conversation. And I think a good way to start, we have a quick little clip. I think it's a good introduction. So we only have a few clips that we'll play, but we'll just start off with the first one. Manny, do you want to start off with with Bishop Irenae? So I chose this one for obvious reasons. This episode was with Father Josiah Trenum, and they were discussing internet orthodoxy. I think you guys have seen it before, but I think he sums up the subject pretty good right here. So Manny, hit go whenever you're ready, brother.
Okay.
Orthodoxy on the internet is our use of a tool to accomplish some good. What I find concerning is internet orthodoxy. And this I would characterize as a kind of transformation, usually not intentional, but happening accidentally, in which the ethos of orthodoxy is translated from living encounters experienced in the church into an environment which is characterized by an internet presence almost more than other things, to where church life might be an important part of what a person does himself or herself, but in which the great arena of spiritual growth is more and more concentrated in this digital medium. And this I find concerning and a problem. Something that we need to think about carefully as we carry on in this century and really dissect using the criteria of the church as to what is spiritually helpful and what isn't.
So I think the reason why I wanted to start with that one, it's a little bit more deeper than some of the other clips I could have picked, is because I think he makes a good point about the internet orthodoxy being a tool. How do you guys view the online orthosphere? How does it affect your lives, positively, negatively, and how do you engage with it? Whoever would like to start, go for it.
Well, I think it's a pretty big mixed bag. A lot of good, some bad stuff that I tend to just try to ignore. And like for me personally, it's been cool to see the Orthodox presence online really blow up in recent years. Because when I was coming into it in 2010, there wasn't a whole lot of content out there. There was like Ancient Faith and some other things that I listened to, but there weren't all these like personalities and all this like social media saturation of Orthodoxy. But I don't know. I mostly try to pick out the good stuff and ignore the bad stuff, I guess, is the thesis statement of what I'm trying to say right now.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to like approach it. That there's a lot of good. Maybe there's some stuff that's not the best, but it's easy to ignore. I get a lot out of it because there's so much long form content that I can sit and listen to. Like I have one of those jobs where I can like have headphones on so I can listen to a lot of stuff. And I really appreciate like the online presence of Orthodoxy. It's not a replacement for actually being part of a community, but it is good in a lot of ways. Like you can fill up your time with really specific niche topics. You can learn about saints specifically or certain theological aspects. And you can really get into a lot of long form content, debates like Jay Dyer stuff. Like there's a lot of really interesting and informative and entertaining kind of Orthodox content now. And it's really nice to be able to have like a treasure trove of it on the internet. So it is really nice in a lot of ways.
I agree. How about you, Mark?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's definitely a tool, and I see a lot of positives just to how quickly and how wide you can spread orthodoxy through the internet. I mean, it's a beautiful thing, and that's going to come with, good things and bad things. It's going to bring good people into the church, and it's going to bring bad people into the church. I mean, like there's a quote from St. John Chrysostom, and it says, "If you've come to the church to find holy people, you've made a mistake. If you come to find God, you chose correctly." And I think the main thing is just coming to the church for the right reasons, to come as not to come just for orthodoxy as an ideology that you can kind of map your life around. And it may have that aspect to it where it can fix many aspects of your life and many aspects of society, but to realize that is the fruit of it being the actual mystical body of Christ. And I think a lot of priests have been talking about that recently too. Father Turbo talks about it, and Father Trubenbaum, I think his last name is Paul Trubenbaum.
Yes.
Yeah, I think he spoke on it recently.
Yeah,
as well.
We have one of those clips.
Yeah, no, he's great, man. He's getting around a lot lately, and it's really cool to see that because I've been watching his stuff since I first came into Orthodoxy and beforehand. And it's there's just so many beautiful personalities kind of contributing to Orthodoxy right now, and I definitely try to focus on the positive, and I know I take the bad with the good because I know how that's how anything works when something becomes widespread and it's literally kind of almost trending in a way, which feels weird to say, like Orthodoxy is almost trend, you know what I mean? But yeah, no, so with that's going to come, like, you know what I mean, some aspects that, but I think it's a beautiful thing. It's so cool to see so many people come into Christ. And it's important to come for the right reasons, and I think that's the main focus and the main thing I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's why I wanted both of you guys on here, like, well, both podcasts on here, all three of you fine gentlemen on here, because I like the way that you guys present the material, and you constantly have that focus, where it's like, it feels like you're doing it for the right reasons. And I'm not judging anyone that may or may not be doing it for the right reasons, because I know a lot of times, sometimes that does lead to the right reasons. Like, I know when I first got into the game, I'm not going to mention the podcast. I don't feel that person is presenting the information in an honest way, I guess I would say. But that person did lead me to a lot of other people that I later on learned a lot from. You know what I mean? And from after finishing both of our episodes with Synaxis and with Mark, I got a lot of messages from people that had been introduced to Orthodoxy because of Father Turbo when I had him first on. I mean, these people didn't know anything about Orthodoxy whatsoever. And both of you guys had said stuff, both of those two interviews, that in particular, I got personal messages from people going, what were they talking about here? What was this book here? So I think that's the important part. That's the part that people overlook sometimes and kind of get too caught up in the minutia of the arguments, that they forget that there's people out there that are introduced to the subject from like people like us. And if we're representing the faith properly, we encourage them to go to church and talk, go to service, check it out, and all that stuff. So I think that's an important thing that kind of gets lost in the arguing of the position of online Orthodoxy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's a key thing to be plugged into an actual church community if you can. I know some places, some people may live in places where it's not as common, and you may have to drive really far. It's actually common for people to drive like 3 or 4 hours or even more sometimes to get to a good Orthodox parish near them. But I'm blessed to live within like a half an hour distance. There's a lot of Orthodox churches here in Southern California right now, and glory to God for that. But I know some other people are not in that same position. And if possible though, I would definitely plug into a community, because it is key, and it's very key to have a spiritual father to guide you through the process. And
definitely,
for sure.
So
that was well.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna second that. Yeah, the spiritual father and the community aspect is so important, and I think that's one of the downsides to the internet sphere is when that's overlooked. So,
yep, for sure. I mean, for Manny and myself, like Manny is looking into the faith, but we can't exactly go talk to a priest, because where we are, it's like we're in Mexico, and the nearest church that's functional on a regular basis is on the other side. And it's not like Canada or the US where a 24-hour drive isn't that bad. Here it's kind of nuts. So for us to get to a church is pretty hard. So and I didn't really I took it for granted. Like when I was in Toronto, there's every jurisdiction was like 2 minutes away from my house, and I didn't go. Now that I desperately want to, it's like all I have is like going online and listening to you guys talk, or Father Turbo, and so on and so forth. So basically, moving on to the next kind of focus, I wanted to another thing about online Orthodoxy is like it looks like there's a bunch of different camps. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean like interests, like little groups, I guess you would say. So like on the one hand, you have like more of the punk influenced, Death to the World, Father Turbo, Buck Johnson, and that, and then you have the apologetic side of things with the Jay Dyers and the David Patrick Harrys and all that kind of stuff, and then you have like all of us kind of in the middle. How do you guys see that? Like, do you guys feel closer to one? Like, there's nothing wrong with that, but do you guys feel closer to one camp over the other? How do you guys look at that?
I mean, I think it's good that people kind of take on niches that they're studied in. Like there are a lot of channels that are really exceptional at what they do. Like Jonathan Pageau plays like an indispensable role in Orthodoxy to like help people think about things symbolically. And then there's a lot of philosophy channels that focus, like Telos Found, like great channel. Like focus really, like he wrote an awesome book on like communal ontology, and he focuses on like the philosophy aspect, coming from a more philosophy background. And then, there's people like Jay and David Patrick Harry who are really good at apologetics and argumentation and being able to like combat other worldviews. And it's like, it's good that there are these camps because then people can fill the niche and the role that they're exceptional at. And you're not expecting one person to be like the super jack of all trades and come in with the apologetics. You know, it's good that there's depth to the world and like punk scenes all of a sudden finding orthodoxy because they can appeal to a huge swath of people who are also seeking for that kind of thing, who maybe aren't interested in, you know, philosophy in the same kind of way. I mean, not that they're not interested in philosophy, but,
Right.
you know, coming from a more like rebellious kind of anarchic background.
For sure. Yeah, it's for, like, and one thing is like sometimes we get caught up in those camps, and sometimes they start to feud like all the apologetics, all of the debaters. Sometimes there's a lot of heat on them, like on Jay and David Erhan and David Patrick Harry and Andrew Wilson's getting all the heat now too, and I think it's a little unfair because I know like that was an entry point for me, a lot of that stuff, and I kind of needed that, and I still do. I really appreciate watching those debates. They really kind of give you tools when you're in a conversation with someone, you know, who may disagree for whatever reason. It also makes me think, why am I in this faith? Like, why am I Orthodox? Like, why did I go back to it? Am I in it for the right reasons? Like, or is it just, you know, whatever? So I think it's kind of unfair that they get a lot of heat. I kind of get it to some degree. Not that I agree with them, but I understand if someone doesn't know their intent, why they would go after them. Like, how do you guys feel about that sort of dogpiling? It feels like.
Yeah, I mean, when you put yourself out there, you're always going to have detractors and people maybe misunderstanding what you're saying, or just straight up not agreeing with it, or what have you. And like you said, I kind of understand why some people are rubbed the wrong way by some of their personalities, but I also don't agree with the people who try to, I guess like the phrase is like virtue signaling, when they try to tell them, hey, you're being a big fat meanie and stuff like that. And, you know, like, I guess I understand the sentiment because they can be really abrasive for sure, but that almost comes with the territory that they're in. Like, they're in an arena. It's I think the Crucible, they call their channel like blood sport, like philosophical blood sports or something like that. So, and those guys can take it too. I think they like it. So, you know, that's their thing. But anyway, Mark, you had something.
Yeah, no. I think Jay, I think there's a place for all that. I think there's definitely, because these different camps and different ways of reaching people. I mean, that's what the world needs, is like all these different personalities that can tap into and relate to other personalities that are specific to what they've been through in their own journey. And I think Jay definitely has a place. I mean, he has a huge place he's probably the best. I've never seen anyone debate at the level he debates at. Like, it's just, and the people he has to deal with, I kind of understand why he may come off the way he comes off sometimes, because I mean, some of the people he's dealing with are unbearable. Lord have mercy. Like, I mean, some of the people that come at him, like, I mean, and the things he has to just repetitively over and over and over. And he actually has a lot of patience. If you really sit there and watch, he actually is showcasing a lot of patience and gets pushed and pushed and pushed. And these people, there's a lot of passive aggressive people that are playing manipulative games, and he calls them out and he doesn't let them do that. And I think that's why people get mad, because they get called out on their, you know, I'm trying not to curse here, but yeah, they get called out on, you know what, you know?
Absolutely. And like, that's the thing I love about him, is he won't let you off the hook. Cause like I see other people debating in other subjects, and they'll let the other person off the hook, but he won't put up with the silliness. And I think that you guys are right. That is what jars people and gets them upset, especially when he's asking you to define your terms and you're just not doing it. To be honest, I don't know how he does it. I would lose my, as you said, the stuff, right? Like, even in my personal life, Manny has seen me in conversations where you're being gaslit, and I lose it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, I'm not good at keeping my temper, but I lose it. I don't know how Jay keeps calm. Like, he does a great job of like, I guess you would say it's a form of combat in defense of what we believe in. And you know what? He makes me question myself often, and I really appreciate that. So, like, big shout out to Jay. David Patrick Harry, Andrew Wilson, all those cats. They're out there doing something important. I think, as much as they get criticized for it, I think they're doing something important.
Yeah, they play like a
Yeah.
good role in like a kind of like masculine orthodoxy. Like you said, it's like combat. You know, it's a very masculine way to go about it. It's argumentative, it's disagreeable, it's trying to find what's true. You know, if I ended up like knowing a girl who was interested in orthodoxy, I might not tell her to watch like a 4-hour argument with Jay Dyer. But like for a young man who's interested in it, who's trying to seek truth and wants to have like a rigorous, logical, defensible position, like that's exactly who I'd send him to.
Absolutely.
So you know, he plays like an indispensable role, and he's the best at what he does, and he just destroys in debates. Obviously, he's definitely the best in his little section for sure.
Absolutely. And like some of the other guys, like I think you guys made a lot of good points there, where like each camp has its place, and it's connecting with a certain type of individual. Like some people that are more into that stuff would go in that direction. Some people that are like, I know a lot of my audience in the past were more like punks. So obviously, like, you know, showing them death to the world kind of open up a lot of questions for people. And then there's like the more scholarly types. I mean, you guys mentioned Paisios, incredible thinker. I love like the philosophical approach that he takes. And there's also like the Seraphim Hamilton. Man, I get lost. I'm like, how do you keep that? I don't know. Like I have to listen to his podcast 10 times. Like each episode, I have to kind of like continuously listen to it over and over again. And his whole like young Earth approach. Now he's moving in that direction of young Earth, and I'm like, I walked into it going, nah, come on, no way. And then he gets me thinking. I'm like, okay, maybe I got to revisit this too. it's like Orthodoxy's dismantling all my belief systems at once.
Yeah. Seraphim Hamilton's amazing, man. I mean, I don't know that's just another level. Like, and in terms of going back to David Patrick Harry, I mean, that was something that brought me into Holy Orthodoxy, because just his whole background in New Age, like he had a whole New Age channel that was like super prominent, and he gave all that up to do Church of the Eternal Logos. And it was an episode with your mate Tom that actually brought me, like, that just struck me after I'd come out of a huge psychedelic ceremony, and he was coming out of a ayahuasca ceremony, and it just something really clicked in that moment. I was like, man, this is exactly what happened to me, and it's obviously demonic. And it's not just me that sees it. It's like, this is definitely demonic. And, you know, so thank God for David Patrick Harry as well. Shout out to him and Kotel.
Absolutely. Kotel's often mentioned, top 3 always. Yeah. Shout out to Dave.
Yeah, he's a great dude, and it's relatable. Yeah, coming from, like you said, like coming from the New Age stuff and being heavily into psychedelics, it was really relatable. He was a really cool guy. We hung out with him when we went to Montana. He's super personable. Nice. Patrick's a great dude. He's definitely a homie for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and I like his approach too. It differs. It's kind of like in between a Jay Dyer and a Seraphim Hamilton. He kind of like brings complicated issues. So if Dave ever watches this, he takes really complicated issues and subjects and simplifies it so that we can all kind of, you know, I'm an idiot, so like I need that, right? And he really brings it down to like a way where it's but he's also not super soft. Like he'll kind of like speak in a way like kind of, come on guys, get your shit. Sorry, my apologies. Get your stuff together. You know what I'm saying? I'm new at this. I still swear. But yeah, he's great. He's absolutely great. Are there any other podcasts that you don't hear a lot of people talking about that, like, you know, you wish people mentioned more?
I like PsyOp Cinema a lot, but they don't necessarily go into like Orthodox theology or anything. It's really, they talk about like MK Ultra and the way films manipulate the masses.
Yep. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Aren't one of them Orthodox? They're Orthodox, right? Hello, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. I think Synaxis clipped out something. Manny will take out.
Okay.
How about you, man? Do you have any?
But yeah, no, I don't have any. I've been blanking on the Orthodox podcast because I watch Royal Path so much. I watch Royal Path and Kotel, and then I don't really. I'll watch some Jay Dyer. I'll watch some Seraphim Hamilton. I watch the classics, like the main people. There's this new channel coming up on Instagram, Roots of Orthodoxy, and they're posting a lot of
Oh,
Paul Trubenbach, and I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying that as well.
Me
I hope
too.
they continue doing what they're doing and put out more content, because I'm really enjoying what they're doing right now. Actually, Roots of Orthodoxy.
Oh yeah, they're incredible. Like
Yeah.
that's one of the channels I get lost in. I just keep going
Yeah.
from one to the next. It's really good stuff.
Yeah,
And
no,
it's
it's amazing.
funny that when you mentioned the psychedelic experience stuff after our episode, the amount of messages I've gotten personally about your story, like I know I sent you one yesterday, but I've gotten a few, man. People are like just reaching out, like, dude, that story. One guy, he had just done a decent amount of LSD, and then 2 days later watched our episode, and then from that day on, like he would do it frequently. He stopped now. It's been about 2 weeks. He hasn't touched it. For him, that's a long time, because he was microdosing and all that stuff. So that's a positive. That's a positive.
That's a beautiful thing. Glory to God, man. Glory to God. That's always awesome to hear, and super humbling and encouraging, because that's definitely the reason I do it, is like as a cautionary tale that people hopefully can learn vicariously through my mistake and not have to keep making their own mistakes or lose their mind, because I felt myself on the brink of losing my mind and soul out there, and it's just like, that's not something to really play around with, you know.
No, I mean,
Hey,
I
sorry,
had
guys.
my experience. No worries, no worries.
Oh,
You're back. Yeah, I see ya.
We got booted,
Yay.
but I think we fixed it. So
It's I think it was Manny. Manny was like, he was fed up with you guys. Like, I'm kicking these guys out.
wouldn't be the first time.
Manny, are you there, man? Is he there?
Yeah, I just.
Oh, he just
did a
popped
quick
up on the
prayer, I
screen
guess
right
it
here.
works.
All right. Like, what? Yeah, is that an onion? Someone asked, "Is that was an onion?" I think I'm asking too. Is that an onion?
It's just it's whatever it is.
I like how the mouth moves. It's kind of cool, like a little flame from Super Mario or something. Kind of.
Yeah, thanks.
It's interesting.
Yeah, he does. He does his own little live stream too with his buddy. I don't know if you want me to say that, but I'm saying it, Manny. I'm saying it, buddy.
Yeah, we're actually
Dropping
it's
truth
kind
bombs.
of related.
It is.
It's so we're called couch cretins. This was actually a concept I made before learning about Orthodoxy. Turns out cretins, the way it's spelled, is actually it's French for Christians. So it was used in I think the 1800s to refer to people with a certain disease or medical syndrome, and they called them cretins in order to kind of emphasize their humanity, like keep them on equal level, I guess.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah,
Interesting.
Another interesting thing about Manny, so he's my nephew, and what do Catholics call that when you sponsoring or whatever? What is that?
oh yeah, sponsors for confirmation.
Yeah, so this is before when I wasn't taking Orthodoxy seriously. I was still kind of like in the world that I was in. Some of you guys were at. So at that time they asked me to do that, to play that role. What's it called again, Manny? Confirmation guy, whatever.
The
Sponsor, yeah. So he asked me to be his sponsor at the Roman Catholic thing, and then like a year ago, when we started kind of talking about Orthodoxy, and by the time he got to like help me edit Father Turbo, he was already kind of like, well, what's going on with this Orthodoxy? We started talking, and I'm like, I don't think that's what the Roman Catholic Church intended when I sponsored you to kind of go, hey, there's the Orthodox thing over there. It's very counterintuitive. So you never know how God works. God works in mysterious ways.
Yo, shout out to Technor Graphics, my boy Mikhail, in the chat right now. Shout out to him. He's cool people. He's always in the Cotel and Jay Dyer chat. So good people.
Absolutely.
Good people. Shout out to him.
Yeah, he's a good Instagram.
I follow him as
Instagram
well.
Stuff all the time.
Yeah, he does some great work.
People. Yeah, he
definitely. Thanks for
Check him
representing,
out,
brother.
bro.
Yeah, Manny, throw up his things if you can. So, actually, man, you want to play the Father Peter Heers video? Starting
sure
at
thing.
Yeah. So this is we all fans of Father Peter Heers. He's a phenomenal priest. Just it's a little bit longer than the other one, but I think the message here is kind of important to get out there. So go ahead, Manny, whenever you're ready, brother.
We live. How can we avoid this temptation? Thank you. Well, I think, yes, it can. There is a temptation to basically want to be entertained and to be fed and to constantly be on the receptive side, the passive receiver, and not to be engaged in practical, virtuous activity. That's a temptation, absolutely. There is that problem. There are people who are engaged so much in the theoretical, they're running ahead without the presuppositions for the spiritual life. They're running ahead beyond what is possible into areas that they cannot achieve, and yet they think they are, and it could be delusional. So you have to be grounded in a practical spiritual life in the parish and among your family and among your relatives and friends. That's where you're going to make progress. When you have your long suffering, you're patient, you're humble, you're denying yourself, you're keeping the commandments. It is a given. The commandments are assumed if you're going to have a prayer life. The Lord will not grant you any exalted experience of himself without practical spiritual discipline and virtues. It's not going to happen. All right. You got to do both. You got to be well grounded in a daily spiritual struggle of prayer and fasting and love of neighbor. And then the grace will come in prayer. Right. It's both and. So how do you dial it back if you're just a passive receptor and you're titillating your oh, this is so interesting. I just want to get more and more. I want to learn, because there's a honeymoon like that. There's a time, it's called the catechumenate. That's why it should happen 3 years and not 6 months. There's a time when we're going to sit at the feet, and we're not going to be able to do a lot because we're still not initiated, right? The mystagogy has not come to fruition. We're not there yet. And even as a young Orthodox, still going to go on. There's going to be a honeymoon of sorts, right? But I guarantee you, if you're making progress, there's going to be times when you're going to have tremendous struggles, tremendous temptations, you're going to be required to have tremendous patience. And that's a good thing, right? That is a good thing. You need that. The grace will be rescinded
point right here
on your face. And that is a good thing. The Lord wants us to participate in the mystery of the cross. He wants us to add our own to the whole struggle. He wants us to participate. So dial it back. Tell yourself, I'm going to watch whatever, Tuesday night or whatever it is coming up, but I'm also going to do this. I'm not going to just do that. And I'm not, if I am at the point right now where I'm just consuming, I'm going to dial that back. I'm going to lay it out that I'm going to do this many times, this many hours, and no more per week. And now I'm going to take those extra hours and I'm going to go do something that's just a simple, practical, virtuous act for my neighbor, my brother, my sister, my mother, my father, whatever it is. I'm going to go give them a gift. I'm going to go weed their garden. I don't know.
Man, you can stop it there.
You have plenty of opportunities. Everyone has opportunities.
Father Peter's great, man.
I love Father Peter here. He's such an awesome priest.
Any thoughts on all of that? That's quite. I think.
No, I think it comes down to like wearing the cross, just wearing the cross versus bearing the cross. Mm-hmm. You know, like anybody could put the cross, like wear a cross on their chest, but it's another thing to actually pick up the cross and carry it. You know, mm-hmm. and it's one thing to. I think he's talking about coming into the church, you know, from a strictly ideological perspective and intellectual perspective. There could be that honeymoon phase where you want to soak up all this knowledge and it's so fresh, but that can be fleeting. And when that goes away, that honeymoon phase is over. If you don't have Christ at the helm of it, if you don't have Christ at the core, it's not going to last. And I think that's what he's trying to say.
Well, it reminds me of, I went up to Platina for Father Seraphim's 40th anniversary, and Bishop Garasim gave this homily where he didn't say it in these words, but he was basically saying, stop being a keyboard warrior and touch grass. And he held up a prayer book and he said, weep for your sins and pray to God. Like, forget about trying to win arguments online. You need to concentrate more on repenting and struggling with your passions if you're going to be an Orthodox Christian. And that's just such a sober and fundamental way that you have to look at it, for sure. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a key component there, the repentance and like living a life of repentance and kind of reminding yourself at all times, you're not saved, man. You gotta kind of practice and kind of keep that in mind at all times, you know. And Father Peter Heers goes on there. Don't worry, man. I'll just read the quote. He goes on there to quote Saint Paisios, and he says, "We don't read to acquire knowledge. We read to apply what we read." you know, and like that's of course that's such a Saint Paisios quote. He's very humble, very sweet, but very direct and true, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a lot to take in. So and it gets exciting in the beginning. Like even from myself coming back into this, I was very excited. Like, oh, why didn't my dad tell me this, or why didn't my so and so tell me all this stuff, amazing stuff about the faith? And I got caught in that cycle that he's referring to, where it's just like you absorb all this information, and then what are you doing with it? And that kind of clicked with me a couple months ago, where I was like, I need to do something more than just absorb information. So I think it's a good reminder.
It reminds me of also when I was so frustrated. I was in this patch of coming from New Age to Orthodoxy, and in between that, I was in this little spot of Protestantism, and I was getting so frustrated with the way they would separate faith and works. Yeah. And then in Orthodoxy, it's never either or in that aspect. It's both and, as he's saying, like faith and works together to prepare our hearts to properly receive the grace of God. And it's clear in the book of James that faith without works is dead. But I love that both and aspect of Orthodoxy, the holistic aspect, the holistic understanding of the scriptures.
Absolutely. And like one other thing about like some of the experiences I've had recently, I thought I'd share this one with you guys. It happened two days ago. Manny was in the room at our house over here, and a friend of ours, a Mexican friend of ours, who we've met here. He tutors my daughter and everything like that. Really cool guy. Last year we had a lot of conversations that were extremely new agey, Gnostic, more Hermetic from my end, more Gnostic from his, a different place and time, or almost 2 years now when we had this conversation. And he's over and we're talking, and somehow we always got into spiritual matters, and now he had a totally different perspective. And at one point I'm like, are you looking into it? Because we started talking about Orthodoxy, and he was like, we were talking about the difference of how we view hell versus Catholics and so on and so forth. And at one point he was saying stuff. I'm like, this guy's looking into it. And I asked him, are you looking into it? He goes, well, yeah, I watched your episode with Father Turbo. And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm talking to a totally different person. And that's another thing that's overlooked often, is like the power of a person, a priest like Father Turbo, who really like connects with your soul. You know what I'm saying? And it does change people. And it's something that we need to keep in mind, I think, when we're on the online space, you know? Oh, yeah, we got some 100%. Comments.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there's I did a video. It was called Authenticity and Orthodoxy, and it was talking about basically like because I was looking up like definitions of authenticity, and it just kept talking about being true to yourself, and I'm like, but that's not authenticity in Christianity, you know. That's kind of like Luciferian. And I was like, you know, authenticity in Orthodoxy is being true to Christ.
Yes.
And putting your own will to death and trying to align your will with the will of God. And I think we have a unique responsibility being part of the authentic church that Christ and his apostles established, to present ourselves and present the church in an authentic way. Because if we don't, it can almost make people think that it's not the authentic church. It can almost rub off on the church, and the church itself as an organism can never be like it's the truth no matter what. But we have a unique responsibility in the way we present it to people, because it is the authentic church of Christ, and we need to do it its justice and give it its due and be presented in an authentic manner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody recall a moment where they were kind of starting out, looking into things where like a priest said a certain thing that kind of changed your whole frame of mind, kind of turned everything upside down for you, at least how you viewed things?
I know there was a quote from St. Athanasius that blew my mind. It was, orthodoxy is what Christ taught, the apostles preached, and the fathers kept. And I was like, boom. I was like, oh my goodness. Like that was like just jarring for me as someone who was looking for the original church, the original Christian church. Because that's how I got lost in mushrooms too. I thought the mushrooms were the original sacrament. I was looking for orthodoxy in all the wrong places.
Absolutely.
Ultimately, yeah.
Yeah, your mushroom story just took me back to it, because my last one was in 2019. Mine wasn't as dramatic as yours.
Your last mushroom trip?
Yeah, 2019.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was. I took that's the night I did 15. It was 15 or 14. But I started off with 7 grams, and then throughout the night I kept taking more, which sometimes is worse. Yeah, it is. And I had a moment. It was bizarre because like I was at this music festival. My band had just played. I took it like last song. I just took it because I'm gonna get off stage. Whatever, we'll be tripping. It was fun for about an hour. Like again, I don't advise it to anyone. It was fun for about an hour, but then after that, some weird stuff happened that wasn't super intense. There was this moment where I heard music in the distance, and I approached the stage. So now there was other bands playing, and I stood staring at the stage, and I swear to you, everything stopped. Like time completely stopped. People froze. I remember looking at my drummer, he was frozen, but the music kept rolling. And in my mind, I started to have a conversation with myself. I'm like, okay, everything is frozen, but I could hear the music moving. So time is still moving, but everything is frozen. And I started saying, do I have control of this? And then I was like, in my head, I would start pointing at things and having them move. So then all of a sudden I started to get this feeling like I was like very godlike, very Luciferian. Like look how awesome I am. I can do this. But I remember after that, I started losing my way of interpreting consciousness, awareness, like what was really happening. So I went off alone and I went to my tent to kind of like lie down. And then from there on, it went downhill. It was not cool. I swear to this day, I felt things like whispering at me, touching me. I know I'm like, God knows what was going on. And thank God nothing worse happened. But that morning after I woke up and I was like, okay, that's not something to be playing with. Something else was touching me. And maybe I should take this a little bit more serious. I mean, I didn't start looking into Orthodoxy at that point, but it was definitely, it shook me.
Right. That sounds intense. Yeah, no, definitely. And I truly do believe we can, we open ourselves up to demonic interactions, especially at those high dose levels when you're getting into like the 15-gram range. And there's some guys out there that are doing like 30, 40. They're doing some crazy stuff. But yeah, you're tapping into something. I think you're like almost opening up a portal to something that you shouldn't. You're stepping into demonic territory. And even if you're doing it unknowingly, there's these spiritual consequences that come at us.
Absolutely. And it's like another aspect of online Orthodoxy is the conspiratorial side of things. And I know I deal with a bit of that. Synaxis, you deal with a bit of that. Mark, you do a little bit as well. And I think there's like an important aspect to that. I mean, I know when I first got into questioning, the government or whatever back in the early 2000s, it kind of, you can get lost in that as well. You can get lost in that hamster wheel, and you just keep going around and around and really do nothing with your life, just kind of look into things. But if you just keep going, I think it was David Patrick Harry, another shout out to David Patrick Harry, who said, if you keep digging for the truth, you end up at Orthodoxy or you end up at Christ, something like that. I'm paraphrasing what he said. But that definitely was true for me, for sure. So I liken that to the mushrooms, to the New Age stuff. If you just keep digging, you always find yourself back at Christ. You know what I'm saying? It's an important aspect. And so I know like the Synaxis, you guys spend a lot of time really like showing how pop culture, is threaded with this Luciferian sort of approach to kind of like manipulating the way you see things. What's the kind of feedback you guys get from people that are like getting into your stuff? Are they moving towards Orthodox, like non-Orthodox people or non-inquisitive people?
Well, I think most of our audience is already Orthodox from what I can tell. Okay. We've definitely gotten comments from people who I'm not totally sure what their background is, but they share, they share details and things about a little bit more about some of the conspiracies we talk about. But I feel like they're mostly all on the same page with us. I haven't really necessarily seen anybody that we blew their mind or something. I think that most of the people are kind of expecting this stuff at this point. So,
but I think, like you said, there is a lot of people who come from like a conspiratorial angle, like interested in conspiracies for 10 or more years, who end up at Orthodoxy. Like one of my oldest friends who I knew when I was like 12 or something got baptized like a year ago. So he got baptized before me, but it was definitely the kind of thing that we went on this big long journey trying to figure out what was going on in the world, and both ended at Orthodoxy.
Awesome. Yeah, that's and I could see it too, because all of our channels, well, you guys more than me at this point, everything you're discussing, if it has nothing to do with Orthodoxy, you find a way to bring the worldview in, but it's not forceful. Neither of you guys do it forcefully. That's what I appreciated about your channels before I even talked to you guys or reached out and was just watching your content. It's not forceful. It's not in your face, unless like the subject matter is clearly like, Father Seraphim Rose. I mean, how can you avoid that? But and I really appreciate that. And I think people that are coming to the faith can kind of tell if you're just preachy and just preaching at them, or whether you're just kind of like guiding them, say like, maybe consider this worldview. It's a little bit different, but consider it.
Yeah. And I think he was saying, David Patrick Harry, at the bottom of every rabbit hole is Christ in Orthodoxy, basically. And there is even a channel, my buddy's channel, Reader Paul, called the bottom of the rabbit hole.
Yeah,
and it's a great Orthodox channel. He just did a video responding to Russell Brand, who mentioned he's going to be attending an Eastern Orthodox church, which is
he was wondering
very fascinating. Yeah,
I sent that
Reader
around
Paul
the other day.
Yeah, he just did a response video to it, super in depth and well done. And it's just kind of cool to see. There's so many people looking at Orthodoxy right now. Like, that's just a testament to it right there. Russell Brand is mentioning an Eastern Orthodox church.
Yeah, Russell Brand had
most recent videos.
He had Jonathan Pageau on a couple months ago. And
Yeah.
it seemed like he definitely had his like mind kind of blown by the way that Pageau was talking about it. And I know that Russell Brand comes from like a perennialist angle and really into like Manly P. Hall and the secret teachings of all ages and that kind of stuff, which is really relatable to me because that's kind of where I came from.
Me too.
But it is interesting to see him put a video up and ask people about baptism, if they think it's serious. And he said that he wants to get baptized like in the Jordan, or some kind of river at least, like full immersion. And he wants to attend a church and he's not really sure which one. And yeah, it was cool to see him bring up Eastern Orthodoxy as part of it. So, it's great.
Yeah, and sometimes like we like to criticize. I know I do too. The whole Jordan Peterson camp and how that is a pipeline. Like we all are aware of it. Like a lot of people start off with the Jordan Peterson and somehow find their way to Orthodoxy, and glory to God that's a pipeline there. That's great. But then his friendship with Jonathan Pageau, and then like I remember last year, the year before, where there's that picture of Jordan Peterson going to Mount Athos, Yeah, I think a lot of those conversations, whether people want to criticize their perspectives or not, it's good. At least it gets people out there and like they're like, there's this other church. You know what I mean? Like just that question is like, you mean it doesn't start with Roman Catholics? And I think that's really cool to see someone like Russell Brand considering it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think people criticize a lot of Jordan Peterson because he's not fully Orthodox and he kind of like flirts with it a lot, and he still takes this like academic Jungian perspective. But just like we were talking about earlier, like he fulfills a niche that's really valuable to bring people who know nothing about Orthodoxy. So all of a sudden being kind of aware of the symbolic truths of the Bible, and then all of a sudden learning about Orthodoxy from Pageau. Like, if I'm not mistaken, him and Jonathan Pageau are about to go on a tour. Like, I'm not sure if it's across America or where it's going across. Maybe it's just Canada, but they are going to tour around together, which means inevitably a lot more people are going to be introduced to Orthodoxy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And and I mean, I do get some of the Orthodox people's stance where they're like, I think it was on the episode that they recently did on Royal Path. Shout out to Royal Path, of course, and they talked about the jacket and all of that stuff. And I'll put that in the show notes. People should go check out that episode. I mean, check out every single Royal Path episode, please.
It's so good.
It really is.
I'm going back and watching all the old ones I missed right now. It's just like an endless, it's so amazing. Endless knowledge and wisdom there.
And they're timeless. It doesn't matter when you go back to check them out. They're completely relevant.
No, totally, dude. And that's when they tapped into something that's just infinite,
Yeah, and I really like that. Sorry, I'm going to geek out on that. It's such a great podcast. It's like you said it last time, Mark. It was like watching three dudes just talking and chilling. One of them happens to be a priest. One of them happens to be an ex-gigolo. And then Andrew is, it's like...
It reminds me of like talking at Agape. Just with my friends at a table, family, church family. It's just
Totally.
it's beautiful and very like laid back, but also very deep at times too. It can go from very laid back, like almost talks about like Batman and like you know, and then it'll be like, you know, it's just so cool. I love the range. I just love it.
Oh, absolutely. I was listening to one of their older ones about it. Is punk dead? Andrew starts off with that question, and they even like kind of in the beginning, they're like, "Oh, where's this gonna go?" And it just takes these wicked turns. It's amazing. It's a great episode. Sorry, I just geeked out on World Path.
Yeah, I need to listen to more of that. There's a good problem is that there's so much content that I can't even listen to all of it.
Yep.
And World Path, I love every time I hear Father Turbo, and Cyprian is also amazing. I saw him on the Mark Claire podcast, and that episode just blew my mind.
Dude, Cyprian's been killing it.
Yeah.
He's great, and I need to listen to that podcast more. But
he's quite the original thinker too. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times you watch people and then, you know, they're just kind of like they're giving their you know, their take on someone else's kind of something that they've already said. No, but Cyprian, he's a very unique thinker. Like he thinks outside of the box, and the way Manny's in because he loves the Royal Path. What's up, Manny? You got something to say?
Yeah, just a quick thing. Cyprian actually helped me with my thinking. He and I are both programmers, and he gave an example of how to think of the fall in terms of programming, in that we were created with a root. So our bootload, so to speak, was the Garden of Eden. And essentially what Satan did in order to screw us up was he injected us with a virus right at the bootload. So now as we load up into our operating system and, you know, all our programs, they're all going to be infected with that virus. And that kind of helped me really understand the fall.
It's a great analogy.
Really is.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he's a game changer.
That's next level, dude. That's crazy.
Yeah,
but that's Cyprian, dude. Cyprian's like that, man. He'll come with that crazy wisdom, dude. Like
totally. He's incredible. Like, and that like you guys were just saying that there's so much content out there. It's so true. Like it reminded me of back in the day when I used to consume a lot of movies and TV. I had to take a big break from that like years ago. I would like start with one show and then just devour and then move to another one and just do. It feels like that now with Orthodox content. Like I'm not even interested in talking about like the the social engineering stuff that I was talking about before. Like I just want to do this. And it's not because I'm like, I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent. I just got excited about some of the stuff that's out there. Like the content's great.
Yeah, man. I mean, I definitely grew up consuming a lot of content in general, working at like a video store and collecting VHS tapes. So I have that like kind of addictive personality. Yep. And I've tried to transfer it over to Orthodoxy in a holy addiction, make it like a holy addiction. And you know, and I've also been trying to pace myself and focus on Christ and repentance and theosis and like the slow burning process of it. Cause I get caught up in the moment too. I get hyped up, man. I love it, you know, and it's like, it's a beautiful thing. There's so much to, it's a never ending well of wisdom. It really is. That's what I've found out with Orthodoxy is it doesn't end. It doesn't end and it's endless.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's well put. And I know the feeling very well. I have that similar addictive personality.
No, that's me 100%.
That's why I wanted to play that Father Peter Heers video because to me it particularly spoke to me. Like kind of like, chill, man. Okay, you're taking all this info. What are you gonna do with the info you took? It. I was like, that's a good point. That's a good point. You know, like that's one thing. It's
like you get the info, and then with the info comes this responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you get this wisdom, and if you get the wisdom now, it's like, but you don't act on it. How's God gonna see that?
Right.
As opposed to someone who doesn't even have that wisdom, you know, like he's going to judge us harsher. So there's a responsibility that comes with that. Oh, it just gave me goosebumps. Lord have mercy.
It did. Yeah, that's a very good.
It's scary.
Point. It is. I think I don't remember who said it. It might have been Father Josiah Trenum, when he was talking about be careful looking into orthodoxy if you're not willing to go all the way. I'm totally paraphrasing, and I apologize if I, but the sentiment I believe is most priests would agree with, is that the way I understood it was be careful looking into it, because once you know, you can't unknow, and then you'll be held liable. Not maybe that's a bad way of saying it, but it's because you know someone might ask, well, what if I was in the middle of the Amazon and I never heard of Christ and I've never seen a white person before or whatever? Will God hold me to this? I'm like, well, he'll judge your heart or whatever. But if you've come into contact with the Orthodox way and then you choose to walk away, I think you could be held liable, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if I spoke out of term. Am I allowed to say stuff like that? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's what he meant. You know, like I'm trying to also be careful.
No, it sounds. Yeah, no, it sounds like you're pretty spot on with that. Yeah, no, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah,
but I'm not a priest.
Yeah, there's that imagery in the gospel of like putting your hand to the plow, and it would be a bad thing if you didn't finish what you started.
Right.
I don't remember exactly what the language was, but that's jumping out at me right now.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Oh man, we got more comments. I can't read that. What does it say? A certain point, once you realize Christ is. Go ahead, Manny. You read
that. He is the truth. All anxiety will shed when we relinquish our heart to the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, well put, brother. That's true. We were talking before you jumped on, Mark. We were talking with Synaxis about something I wanted to say about the eternal Tao. So I was listening to Hieromonk Damascene talking about the book, whatever. Because after I'd finished my episode with you guys, it reminded me, oh yeah, I haven't looked at that for a while. Let's go, go to the gym and listen to this on the way to the gym.
Nice.
So the beginning of the talk, and I think it was 2009, the talk, I'll find it and I'll put it in the description. Someone's talking, and I was like, I like the rhythm of this person's voice. I like what, how they're speaking. I like what they're saying. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why I was like, I don't know. You guys probably already know. So anyways, so this person finishes talking, and then Hieromonk Damascene grabs the mic and goes, well, thank you for that introduction, Turbo.
Yep.
And I was like, wait a minute. Is that Father Turbo before he was a priest? So I go and I message Father Turbo. I'm like, I was listening to this, and he mentioned Turbo. He goes, his response is, yep, that's me. That's all it was. So that was Father Turbo, and you could hear in his voice the same person we know today as a priest, but you could see there was a little bit. He wasn't a priest yet. You could tell in his voice. He was excited. It's good hearing Father Turbo's voice from back then. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I remember that talk. It's really good.
It is.
The Q&A at the end is pretty awesome too.
Yeah, because you guys are saying you met him.
Yeah, he used to come down to our parish to sub for our priests when they were out of town. And one year I got to drive back up to Platina with him, spent like 5 hours in the car, and he was amazing. It's pretty crazy because like
we're talking about Father Turbo, right?
Father Damascene.
Oh, got you.
Yeah. Because Christ's Eternal Tao is the book that I credit with converting me to Orthodoxy. And then to meet the man who wrote it and drive up to Platina with him. I jokingly told him that I felt like I was driving to Graceland with Bob Dylan. And he was really humble about it. But yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Talk about God's providence right there, like kind of full circle. Just
totally.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the, like, what kind of conversation did you guys have? What kind of subject matters did you guys bounce around on? I mean, you guys can go endless, from music to Father Seraphim Rose. Who knows?
We talked a lot about music. He had a CD in his car. It was his favorite guitarist is Bert Jansch. He's like this English fingerstyle guitarist. And I remember talking about Iron Maiden a little bit, but it was a while back, so it's a little fuzzy.
That's awesome. Because every time I've heard him talk, he has that thing that Father Turbo has, where you can kind of feel it. I think Mark, you mentioned it in our episode. You can feel it coming through through the internet, and it's like you really can, like you really can. Every time I've heard, he's calmed me down. There's been days where I've kind of like, I wasn't having a good day, and I would just put on my headphones, go for a walk, and chill, and it definitely helps me. And like, yeah, that's a great book, game changer. I gotta read it again. I listened to a couple of the lectures recently. I'm gonna go read the book again. It's good to kind of do that every once in a while. I have to kind of, and nihilism. That's I got to read that again. And I'm working.
Oh
on
man, that one's so good. That one's so good. That one I had to take like slow. It's like a small book, and I was like, I'm gonna run through this. And I was like, I was reading it, and I was like, this is like thick knowledge. I need to like sit on this and like pray about it. And man, the introduction talking about where Father Seraphim Rose came from before he was like when he was stuck in nihilism, and it's just powerful. It's a really powerful book. That one hits different. That one hits a little different. Yeah.
And to think that was just I think like the first chapter of what he was planning on for a massive book. It's like, I don't know if I could. It's crazy. It's nuts. And like that book was one of my it was definitely a game changer. I mean, a lot of the books I've read recently have been game changers, but that one there kind of coming from a punk background, coming from more of like a hermetic background, nihilism was a big problem for me. Like even when I was into that thinking, like the new age type of thinking, that was the one thing that would always trouble me. Is that, so when you think about it, you kind of think like, oh, you're part of all things, everything's connected. All, when you die, you just become part of source and all that stuff. It always felt so dark and scary. So it's like you kind of lose your identity when you die. Like I had trouble with that. So when I read nihilism, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want you to finish.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like when I read nihilism, it kind of made me feel okay that was like bugging me so much. And I mean, obviously Orthodoxy did it in itself, like keeping your identity was key, but he kind of really like he gave me a way to understand what I was feeling, from that introduction that you're referring to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's like, I think what a lot of people are missing in the world right now is like there's a distortion of the order of creation, where we've like put the creator on the same level of creation, and we're part of creation as part of nature, but then the creator is uncreated, existing above creation on a higher level. And I think there's like this when it gets out of order, you can feel it in your soul, and I think it definitely bears bad fruit, and it throws things out of alignment. And I think that's a lot of what's going on in the world right now. I think there's more to it, but I think at the root of it, if I were to get to the root, I'm reading a book right now by Saint Basil called the Hexameron. I don't know if I said that right. It's a freaking mouthful, but the book is insane. The book is insane. It's absolutely blowing my mind. And I'm reading a chapter on the firmament right now, and it's just it's a whole nother subject. It's a whole nother thing. But anyways,
you're posting about that.
No, but it all ties together, and I think it's all related in a weird, very deep way.
Definitely. Synaxis, you guys were saying something?
Oh, no, I was reacting to, there's a cat. The cat literally just pulled our headphones out of.
There's always a cat involved. Remember, Mark, you had the cat situations on.
Dude, my cat was acting up earlier today too. I think we got him put in the back room for now, but he was just like swiping at the doorknob, getting a little feisty.
Oh, those cats. They're incredible creatures, those things. Speaking of God's creations. Cats.
Yeah, exactly.
Bizarre. I think the first time we tried the cucumber trick with our cat, with my daughter and I. She was really young, and the cat was really small. And seriously, our cat, we had 10-foot ceilings at that time. I swear to you, man, that cat jumped 9 feet easy when he saw the cucumber. I don't know what God did creating the cats.
Yeah, I heard that they think that those are snakes, or anything in that kind of shape that they intuit is a snake, so they just see it and immediately like freak out and jump. But yeah, I've seen a lot of clips online of that.
Oh, it's real, man. It's crazy. My cat's nuts. We have a crazy cat. I think all cats are kind of nuts.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy the crossover with like cats and Orthodoxy, and like I'm pretty sure there's like cats that are in certain churches that like chase the rats out, like they're welcome in certain other areas. They're like very accept it.
Very
I don't
true.
know if, I don't know if
You
you
know?
guys have seen Where Are You, Adam? It's an Orthodox documentary.
I haven't watched it. I want to bad. Go. Talk about
It's
that.
really good.
Good one. Good one.
Yeah, it's really good. And in it, there's a monk whose whole job
Oh,
is
yeah.
to pretty much just take care of the cats. So there's like a monk that walks around, and there's just cats constantly on his like shoulders. Like he's just overrun with cats. But yeah, they need them there because they will get the rats that will destroy the food source.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it becomes a very essential thing for living out in an isolated place like a monastery, like on Athos, somewhere really far away.
That's what I love about Orthodoxy is I feel like it brings things back into their proper place, like everything. You know, the order of creation, like just everything kind of in its proper place.
Yeah.
Like even cats in their proper place, chasing
It's the
rodents.
rightly
Like it's so
ordered
crazy.
hierarchy. So it's
That's
like the rightly ordered thing. You know, they're not fur babies. You know, you don't replace
Exactly. Exactly.
Like,
Yes.
they
Yes.
have
Yes. In the right. Yeah, that's a good point too, because that's not the proper place for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, and then that kind of also ties into what you see nowadays in the whole like man-woman relationships and all the stuff exploding in the manosphere and the red pill stuff. I recently had Cameron McGregor from Neo Masculinity on, and it goes to what you guys are saying, like the proper order of things, and I think having the proper order of man and woman and how those two can coexist, but not in the way that it's done in like modernity, where that you kind of like you said fur babies. Well, the equivalent version of in man-woman thing is like having this like that the modern feminist approach.
Yeah.
It throws things out of whack, takes things out of order. That's a good point. Cats brought us to this. That's amazing. And it's true about cats. To go back to cats, because when I was in Cyprus. When I was younger, Cyprus is a little bit different. They're Orthodox. They're heavily Orthodox, but they have a lot of really cool monasteries and like really interesting spots. And there's always cats. There's always cats, even in churches and this and that. And I remember when I was younger, because I came from Canada, I'm like, cats, what's going on? The cats are like running all over the place. My grandfather would say, they're allowed here as long as they don't go into the altar. They're okay here. And I said, do they ever go to the altar? And he looked at me surprised and he said, actually, they don't. I don't know if they know, but they don't go into the altar. And I don't know. I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, that's super cool. Yeah, there's that story in Father Seraphim's biography where they found the site where they were going to build the church, and they were reading one of the services, and like some deer came out, and they kneeled when you're supposed to kneel, and they stood when you're supposed to stand.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And he talked about how like there's something about animals that harkens back to the Garden of Eden and paradise and stuff.
Yeah, there's a story of Paisios who had this frog that would do prostrations with him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that story blew my freaking mind. I was like, oh my goodness. There's a frog doing prostrations with Paisios. That's so crazy, but it's just beautiful.
It's a cool faith that we're a part of. Like, it's a cool way of life. Like, someone asked me to describe it, and I was like, I don't feel comfortable calling it faith or religion. I mean, there is all the, and he's like, well, what would you call it? I'm like, well, I don't mean, because this person's like he's totally on the other side of things spiritually. And I'm like, honestly, it sounds cheesy to you, me saying this, but it's honestly, it's a way of life. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't really, I can't separate that, whatever you want to call it, orthodoxy. I can't separate it from like the most basic actions in life. He's like, so what do you mean? Like, we're in the gym right now. I'm like, exactly. He's like, so what are you listening to? I'm like, actually, and at that time I wasn't. I just had my earplugs in, and I didn't want to tell him I was doing the Jesus prayer. But in my head, I'm like, I'm just going through ideas. That's what I said, because I didn't want to be like, what's a Jesus prayer in the middle of the gym, whatever, right? But yeah, it's and you see that in stories of like the lives of the saints. That's why I think like modern saints, like Saint Paisios and stuff, like you can relate to them, because they were here 5 minutes ago, like on this plane. They were here 5 minutes ago, and you can meet someone that actually had an encounter with a saint, and it kind of, I think that's really special. I don't know, I went off on a tangent there, but I think you guys get what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's the faith that established the universe. That's how I thought you were going to answer it, but then I'm like, how would someone
Sunday of Orthodoxy?
What do you mean?
Yeah. Go into that. How would you have answered? Sorry, say that again, because I like hearing
the faith that established the universe. I think that was in the was that in the Triumph of Orthodoxy service or the Great Compline or something, That
Yeah.
that line
The
sticks.
Sunday of Orthodoxy. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that line's. I heard them say that this weekend, and that line stuck with me, and I love it. I don't know how much it would describe to somebody who isn't open to it, but that's what it is.
Yeah. This person.
Yeah, no, I think
definitely not. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
because the original Christians were called like followers of the way, and Christ
Yeah,
called
yeah.
himself the way, the truth, and the life. You know, and that's
Yeah.
another point from like Paisios, where seeing the truth not as a what but as a who, and realizing that
Yeah.
the truth is, with a capital T, is Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
and that he did actually establish a church. And it's hard to explain to people who are like very anti-religion. So I think it is kind of cool to have this like almost more mystical approach that Orthodoxy does have, and it can kind of cross those barriers, and because it really is the original way when it comes in terms of Christianity. And I mean, Christ is the pre-incarnate logos too. Like in the beginning was the logos was with God, and the logos was God. And Jesus Christ, it's saying that Jesus Christ is God, and he is it's just like that. That's one of my favorite Bible verses, as simple as it is, with the proper like interpretation, knowing how to like, not me interpreting it for myself, but through
And
oral
that's like-
tradition passed down.
And that's like a callback to Christ the eternal Tao. The Tao means the way.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. There we go. Boom. Full circle right there.
That's the best
Totally.
translation of like the Tao in Chinese philosophy is like the logos from Western philosophy, and the logos is Christ.
Yep.
So you really couldn't
Exactly.
get more that it's the way.
Yeah,
Oh.
I read the Tao Te Ching many years ago, and I remember many times it would constantly make these references. Like it'll just take like a little poetic explanations of like a plant, but its ultimate meaning would be that the source that makes this and creates this is referring to the logos, without knowing that he's referring to the logos, Lao Tzu, and you can kind of see it after reading Father Damascene's book. I remember making that connection, and David Patrick Harry did a great breakdown of the book as well, and he made a lot of those references where he actually read through the Tao, and it's really crazy how that the logos spermatico flows through all things. You know, it's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Taoism, and I'm pretty sure it's in the Tao Te Ching that he says he doesn't know the name, the eternal name of the Tao, so he just calls it the Tao, the way.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
be named.
Yeah, he says the eternal Tao cannot be named, so he just calls it the Tao.
Yeah, and it's also weird because Socrates, like him or not, he makes similar references as well, because like they compare Lao Tzu with Socrates often, and you can kind of see that thinking in like there's that story, I'm definitely gonna butcher it, where he's walking through the streets of Athens, and a lady walks up to Socrates and says, "Oh, you're Socrates, you're the smartest man in the world, you know everything." And he says, "I only know one thing, that I know nothing."
Yep.
I'm paraphrasing it, and I'm trying to translate it from Greek, because when I heard it in Greek. But like that concept and that idea, just to know that you're not the prime mover, like at a time where Jesus wasn't here, like, well, at least physically in the physical realm, it's cool to see that thread's still there. One second, I heard crackling.
It's
Oh,
the cat.
It's my cat.
Oh, is that the cat?
Jason.
There's a cat coming in there. So, Mark, actually, you brought up the firmament thing there. So, what's your take on that? Because I saw you were posting some stuff.
Honestly, I wanna save that for. I'm gonna do a whole stream on it. It's like a dude. I've got a whole thing. I don't want to. It'll sidetrack like. Plus, it's just a whole thing. I want to have like a whole thing kind of set up. I have quotes of the church fathers. I am okay with leaving it up as a mystery of God, but I also want to show people what the church fathers said. And I know like there's been things that have been discovered since the church fathers, but a lot of those discoveries were from people that are actually Freemasons. So I'll get into that in my breakdown. But I'm not going to take like a super hard stance, but I'm just going to present information from the church fathers.
Great. I look
Nice.
forward.
And we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. But yeah, it's definitely going to have some quotes from the Hexameron, St. Basil book that I'm reading. And yeah, I lean towards biblical cosmology myself. But,
Awesome.
yeah. And I don't think we went to the moon. I don't think we went to the moon. I'll just say that. I'm throwing it out there. I'm like 100% sure we didn't go to the moon.
I'm good with that. Manny,
Yeah.
you got something to say, Manny?
We just got a donation from Chrisma Mysterian.
Oh yeah, that's my buddy. That's my buddy. Yeah, we did a couple streams together. Good people.
Donated 5, and he says, "Love this mix of people."
Oh, awesome.
Right back
Thanks,
Oh, thank you, brother.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
you.
Yeah,
God
we've all
bless.
Glory to
interacted
God.
with him. He's great. He's a great dude.
So-
From Luciferianism to Orthodoxy.
Yeah, we did. My first 2 Light of Tabor episodes are actually with him. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, going back to because I had a debate. Well, it wasn't a debate. I was trying to get someone on, like I was trying to get 2 people to debate flat Earth, and then kind of throw in some stuff and like from flat Earth to globe Earth. I'm not going to move in that direction. I'm just saying, and like this person thought I was like, just because I was just asking questions, like, oh, NASA's a scam. I'm like, dude, I know, like that's not. It doesn't mean because like I'm just asking questions, and I'm like you. I don't have a firm stance on it. All I know is that a lot the footage and what NASA's putting out there is a bunch of not truths.
Well,
It's
even
hard
if you
not to
study film, you can see CGI.
Yeah,
Like I just
totally.
from like a standpoint of like someone that knows film, knows CGI, knows like Stanley Kubrick's work. I'm very familiar
Yeah.
with Stanley. I'm a huge I
Totally.
follow directors, and I love
Yep.
2001: Space Odyssey. That
Me
came
too.
out 1 year
Yeah.
before the moon landing came out.
Yep.
I call the moon
NASA
landing
gave him a very expensive camera.
I call the moon landing the unofficial sequel to 2001: Space Odyssey.
yeah,
Even though there is another sequel, 2010, but
Yeah, it's not very good. Yeah, and then there's that.
yeah, no,
rumor
it's
that
not.
he
I don't
may
even
have
count
used-
that one.
Yeah, and there's that rumor that he may have used the camera lens from NASA and so on and so forth.
Yeah, NASA
But-
gifted him like an extremely expensive camera lens right around that time.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like in
and-
the spacesuit.
when you find out that like all those photos of the Milky Way are just CGI renderings because you can't get a camera out that far and have it come back, like how much, I don't know. It definitely puts it into question for sure.
Absolutely, and that was what I was trying to say to this guy is like, look, all I know is I there's something's going on, something that whatever the story we're being told isn't legit. That I know for
That's
sure.
all I know. That's all I know.
That's it.
Yeah, I know
That's
that
it.
for sure.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
we're just trying to figure out what the reality is.
Exactly.
That's
Like in
all.
the last 3-4 years, if you haven't figured out the average person that something's up, you know what I mean?
You're
Like,
pretty
come
out of
on, you're not
tune.
paying attention. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So I'm interested in that episode that you're gonna put out soon. That's cool.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. It'll be a whole thing.
That's cool. Yeah, and like that's the thing I like about this orthosphere, whatever you want to call it, this online Orthodox world. There's a lot of all of us kind of different interests and kind of like, we start off with a podcast like this and we veer off into like 10 different conversations, and we go on our own way, and then we kind of like contribute creatively, whether it's art, like whether it's episodes on our podcast or interviews, and like that's a beautiful thing. I think it's amazing.
Yeah,
Man.
I agree, 100%, man.
So just wanted to ask a few more questions before we kind of call it off.
For sure.
'Cause, it's like, so the other thing is I wanted to talk about was commenting. So give me a second to phrase this properly, because I don't want to say anything out of line. So oftentimes when we're online, I've heard many people say this even from before 2020. One of the issues with online banter and all that stuff, and how we use social media, is everyone has the need and the feel to comment. They think it's like their duty, their right to comment. And I think I heard Father Turbo mention it. I've heard a few other, I think it was Father Josiah Trenum, a few others, where he's like, you know what, on some matters, I'm not interested in your opinion. I'm not interested in what you think of a subject, because you're not in the position to comment. And I think that's something that I see a lot online in terms of the Orthodox subject matter. And I'm not taking shots at Orthodox individuals. I'm just saying and I don't want to take any shots at Protestants or Catholics either. But I see that they're kind of, how do I put this? They're commenting on stuff they shouldn't be commenting on. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't ask questions. It doesn't mean you shouldn't be inquisitive and so on and so forth. But it's the person that responds, sometimes they respond with such authority, and they're misleading people, and they're misleading their I don't know. Am I making any sense? Do you guys kind of get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So how do you
Yeah,
guys
I
view
see,
the commenting process? Go ahead.
That's another thing I mostly just try to ignore, because I see those same things where people just feel the need to kind of run their mouths, and I see people under like every post and every video having to have some take on it, where it's like, you don't have to have an opinion on everything. And then I'm like, how do you have time to comment under all these things, but then I realized that, oh, well, I'm here reading it. So, but I don't know. I've always been pretty passive with my internet interactions, almost to a fault, probably. I could probably put more out there, but yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of the way of the internet in general, especially something like Twitter, where like outrage and engagement is pretty much the currency that they trade in. So it at a certain point, it just kind of is what it is, and you have to filter it out.
The thing I've noticed with Orthodoxy, and it's kind of a beautiful thing that I appreciate, is that most of the Orthodox people I've encountered, especially in person, they welcome questions. They welcome like hard questions, and it's like more than any other, and Orthodoxy isn't just another religion. It really is the church. But all these I've been to other Protestant denominations, all these non-denominational churches, and it's not the same way. Like asking questions gets you like shamed and like beaten verbally into a corner, and it's like, it's not encouraged. And in Orthodoxy, I see it encouraged more than I do anywhere else. In terms of online with the commenting, I mean, I think that just kind of comes with the territory of like people being able to like hide behind a screen and like not really have to have the consequences of like talking to someone in person. So I try to focus more on like in-person interactions, like in terms of like how I judge that, but I try not to be too judgy or anything in that regard as well too. I just try to. I've been feisty online in the past, and it's not good. It's not good for your soul. I'll tell you that right now. Like I used to be a troll, dude, and it's not good for your soul. It'll bleed into your real life. People think you could separate that from real life into the internet, and I'll tell you firsthand, it bleeds into your real life, and it's not good. It's not good for your soul. So anybody that's engaging in that, it's like, it's not a good thing from them, and there's a lot of projection that goes on, and a lot of like self, like bitterness, where a lot of like that stuff usually stems from. But then if there's actual corruption going on, like there's, it's a hard thing to navigate. There's like a lot of different aspects to it, so I can't really paint it too black and white either. There's a lot going on online.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because there's some times where it does help, but yeah, you're right. It does get you. It almost feels like the way social media has gone. It's like like Lucifer's perfect tool. You just the commenting and stuff is like it brings up the pride. I've been looking into a lot of unseen warfare, going through a lot of that stuff, and just kind of rethinking how I view things. And it's like it's a pride machine. Like it's like, okay, your opinion doesn't matter. Like what makes you think that and then people are. It just brings out the worst in people. It really does, and it kind of really shines a light on ego and pride, and just more and more.
Yeah,
of it. And you're right. I've never tried. I don't used to comment, and then recently I tried because I was just trying to get someone to come on and debate, and I only did it for like a month or so. And Manny knows what I'm talking about because we were talking about it, and it was I didn't like what it did to me. Like it got me all riled up. Even when like you said, you get offline, but it's still there. It's in your head like a little worm.
Yeah, I haven't used Twitter in a long time. I used to use Twitter like many years ago, and I just remembered being in arguments on Twitter, and like hours later I'll be in the shower arguing in my head with someone who's not there, and I'm like, dude, I'm like already I like to argue. I like rhetoric and being convincing, and like some of it's pride, I'm sure, but like I just can't really deal with that kind of thing, so I just don't even engage in Twitter and that kind of stuff anymore. Totally.
Yeah, I can't be on Twitter or X or whatever it's called. I've never engaged with it because I've seen it, man, and it's just like it looks like a war zone, and I'm like, man, that's just gonna bring like the old me out, and I'm trying to put that guy to death and align myself with the will of God, because like the old me would love that, but it's like it's inflaming the passions, and that's not what I need.
Right. And the algorithm's so good at feeding you the thing that's going to annoy you in that minute. Like I open it up and I see the first post and I'm like, I'm annoyed right away. So then like, I just can't engage anymore.
No, it's true. And I think like you guys both brought up good points there about, doing it face to face. And like you said that it's pride. I think when it's done face to face, it's if there's pride there, then it gets put in check. I think if you're having a conversation face to face and you're having a disagreement and a debate, hopefully it's a debate and not an argument, which seems to be a dying art in real life. But I think it puts you in check. Like I think if there is a pride thing there and you're wrong, you'll either have to deal with that or like say I don't know and admit to it, or come up with a better argument. And rarely, I remember like not even that long ago, you have disagreements with people, whether it's politically or whatever, and you wouldn't walk away hating each other. And like that kind of feels like those days are gone. You know what I mean? And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. And I think that's got a lot, obviously has a lot to do with social media and like the things we just mentioned there. So we need more cats in the middle of a debate. Just bring some cats. Just walk around with a monk with cats. You know, that'll help. Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and it also breeds like social media in general. It breeds like an instant gratification kind of culture with this like instant liking and that, you know. And I feel like it's the opposite of the culture of orthodoxy, of theosis, which is like a slow burn, not fleeting, but it takes hard work and it lasts longer. It sticks with you, you know, if you have Christ at the helm. As long as you have, if you're in it for the right reasons, if you're coming to engage with the mystical body of Christ, and you take it seriously and pace yourself under a spiritual father, you should be good to go.
That's good advice. That's very true. You kept making reference to the original church, and I bring that up because a couple people that have been watching the show and kind of saw that I'm going in this direction have challenged me on that. And you know, I usually do pretty okay with that like subject. You know, but it's funny because like the reaction you get from people when they're like, well, yeah, it's not the original church, or you know, if they're Catholic, or whatever. If they're Protestant, I find that most of them aren't even aware that there was something before that. But yeah, going into that, I think it's really important. And one of the videos I was going to play, but it's okay, was like talking about tradition and the importance of it. And that like for the first 30 odd years, there was no gospel, and people only passed the faith on from Pentecost to compiling the gospel. They did it through tradition, through community, and through spoken word. And you know, that's often forgotten. And like tracing back our roots to that, being Orthodox, and seeing like something like the Didache and the description of how practice was done. And if you look out there to see what church fits that best, I find it bizarre that like Catholics will even bring up any arguments, because I'm like, look at the two. Just forget about like getting into like the weeds about like quote mining and dropping this and that. Just forget about that. Just read the Didache, read the description of like the early churches. Look at the early house churches. Like you see pictures of house churches. They have icons. They're describing incense. They're doing prostrations. You know, they and all this stuff. And it see, I'm getting riled up thinking about it, because it's like their arguments don't make any sense. Like you didn't see any fish hats. There was no like monarch, and it's weird. I don't know. It's kind of
I mean, like in terms of it being the original church, I mean, it's right in the Book of Acts. In the original Christians were called that in Antioch, you know, and the Antiochian Orthodox Christian Church is still around today. And that's not just a different denomination, it's pre-denominational, and that's just another jurisdiction. And all these churches that are mentioned in the Book of Acts and in the scriptures, like these churches are around today, like 2,000 years of apostolic succession, and oral tradition cannot be separated from that. And like the truth, like realizing that the truth is something that never changes. In the Orthodox Church, it means the original way. It's the unchanged way of the original Christian church. And you can see which churches have fallen away from truth and away from Christ in their practice. And it started with something maybe as minute as they may make it minute, but it's not minute. You know, if it perverts the original doctrine of the Holy Trinity, the filioque. It perverts. It takes God out of the source. You know, and it's like that from there, it's just like once you accept one lie, it's like it's just a snowball effect of multiple kind of heresies coming into play there. And then you got Vatican II, you got papal infallibility, and it's just on and on and on once you make one change. And that's why Orthodoxy, you know, it's the original, it's truth. It's unchangeable. It doesn't change. The truth is objective, not subjective, and it doesn't, you know, shift with your personal feelings.
There's that running joke. I heard it in Greek first, and then I started hearing it back when I was in Cyprus. And I've heard it in English when someone was describing. There's this conversation happening at this coffee table in Cyprus. These two old men. One was thinking about becoming Catholic, which was very strange in Cyprus, very strange. And he was like, "You guys don't change. You guys don't change." He's referring to the Orthodox, and he's like, "Change? What's that?" Orthodox, we don't have
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
they
The
just
truth
present
doesn't
it like,
change.
it doesn't change.
Have you heard that joke? How many Orthodox does it take to change a light bulb?
Yeah, I have.
I bet you
Tell
can
it,
guess the
tell it.
punchline.
Yeah.
Change whenever we change it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But
And
hey,
that's
guys,
supposed to be the way.
we should probably get going. We have to prepare for another podcast after this one. But
No problem. No problem.
this
My
has been
apologies.
great,
I went
you
longer.
guys. That's all
Absolutely.
good.
It's been a pleasure talking with you guys, man.
Right
Yeah,
back at you.
absolutely.
We'll have to do this again.
Thanks for doing this, guys. I'll include everything, like everyone's tags and all that, in the show notes and all that. So we'll say goodbye to everyone out there. Love you, dudes.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. You've been great.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's good to see you.
You
Much
too.
love, everybody. Glory to God.
So,
Amen.